Good morning. Little scratchy voice there. Little scratchy voice. Good afternoon. Just feels out of character. I'll do it again when I introduce the chaplain of the day. I'll say something like, this morning we've got our, All right, let's see, where will we start at? The hour of convening has certainly arrived and the Senate will come to order. This time I'd ask that all unauthorized persons exit our beautiful chamber. It's my distinct honor. You look well-rested. The well-rested senator from the 53rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had nobody to hold me last night, but I do feel pretty good this morning, this afternoon.
Do you know your microphone's on?
I don't care.
Okay.
In fact, I've never cared. That's a Ricky Gervais thing. I want to give him credit. Moment in time, 1945, the Battle of Iwo Jima ended World War II, except for small pockets of militant Japanese resistance, but it was an end to a terrible incident. Also, 1955, President Eisenhower upholded the use of atomic bombs to only be used in the case of war. Also today is, the senator from the 24th told me it's National Panda Day, one of his favorite days. And Mr. President, the journal's been read and found to be correct. Thank you.
That's a whole lot of paperwork.
That is, and I want to thank the Secretary of Senate for reading it.
What time did you finish reading it?
Well, the Secretary of Senate did it. I just said, it's being read. I don't say I read it. He read it.
I feel better that he reads it.
There's no pictures.
There's people showing up. We better get back to the script. Is there objection to dispensing with the reading of the journal? The chair hears none, and the reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. All senators who have bills or resolutions, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time. Ms. Secretary, first reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions.
Senate Bill 626, a bill by Senators James of the 35th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Subpart 2 of Part 2 of Article 16 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the OCGA relating to public school disciplinary tribunals.
Education and youth.
Senate Resolution 682 by Senator Strickland of the 17th, a resolution recognizing Ms. Sherry Hobson Matthews and Andrew Jackson.
Transportation.
Senate Resolution 684 by Senator Jones of the 10th, a resolution recognizing Ms. Joan Campton and dedicating a road in her honor. And the
Transportation.
Senate Resolution 693, a bill by Senator Harbison of the 15th, a resolution recognizing and commending Black radio personalities and for other purposes.
Rules.
Senate Resolution 723 by Senators Jackson of the 2nd and others, a resolution recognizing and commending Thomas DeCarlo Calloway, better known as CeeLo Green, and for other purposes.
Rules.
Senate Resolution 734 by Senators Anderson of the 43rd and others, a resolution creating the Senate Study Committee on Demographic Notes and Legislation and for other purposes.
Rules.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions.
House Bill 202 by Representatives Hitchens of the 161st and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 10 of Chapter 21 of Title 15 of the OCGA relating to Georgia's Driver's Education
Public
Commission.
safety.
House Bill 203 by Representatives Petrea of the 166th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 40-2-86 of the OCGA relating to the special license plates for
Public
voting.
safety.
House Bill 424 by Representatives Williamson of the 115th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to income taxes so as to change certain
Finance.
House Bill 733 by Representative Smith of the 18th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 33-63-3 of the OCGA relating to definitions regarding guaranteed asset protection waivers so as to
Insurance
revise.
and labor.
House Bill 824 by Representatives Cantrell of the 22nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 6 of Title 47 of the OCGA relating to Georgia legislative retirement systems so as to increase
Retirement.
House Bill 830 by Representatives Irwin of the 28th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 16 of Title 15 of the OCGA relating to general provisions regarding sheriffs so as to repeal.
Finance.
House Bill 918 by Representatives Jokas of the 138th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 31 of the OCGA relating to health so as to provide for the establishment
Government
of
oversight.
House Bill 923 by Representatives Oliver of the 82nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 36-62-5 of the OCGA relating to directors, officers, compensation.
Ethics.
House Bill 983 931 by Representatives Cantrell of the 22nd and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Code Section 40-3-24 of Chapter 5C of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to contents of certificates of title.
Finance.
House Bill 937 by Representative Henderson of the 113th, a bill to be in town and act to amend Article 7 of Chapter 4 of Title 49 of the OCGA relating to medical assistance generally, so as to provide
Health and
for-
Human Services.
House Bill 972 by Representatives Belton of the 112th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 10A of Title 43 of the OCGA relating to licensing provisions regarding professional
Regulated
counselors.
Industries.
House Bill 997 by Representatives Watson of the 172nd and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Part 1 of Article 2 of Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to property tax exemption, so as to provide.
Finance.
House Bill 1034 by Representatives Widower of the 119th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Code Section 48-8-3 of the OCGA relating to exemptions from sales and use taxes, so as to revise the exemption for sales
Finance.
of admissions. House Bill 1041 by Representatives Perkel of the 155th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Code Section 48-7-29.20 of the OCGA relating to tax credits for contributions for rural hospital organizations.
Finance.
House Bill 1053 by Representative Stevens of the 164th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to imposition, rate, commutation, exemptions, and credits for state income tax.
Finance.
House Bill 1068 by Representatives Leverett of the 33rd and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 21 of Title 50 of the OCGA relating to state tort claims, so as to revise provisions regarding service of process.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1180 by Representatives Watson of the 172nd and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 8 of Title 50 of the OCGA relating to regional commissions, so as to revise
Government
provisions.
Oversight.
House Bill 1184 by Representatives Williams of the 168th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Part 12 of Article 6 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the OCGA relating to effectiveness of educational programs, so as to require administration of a national recognized alcohol college.
Education and Youth.
House Bill 1187 by Representatives Williams of the 148th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Code Section 48-8-3 of the OCGA relating to exemptions from sales, use, and tax, so as to extend.
Finance.
House Bill 1283 by Representatives Douglas of the 78th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Part 15 of Article 6 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the OCGA relating to miscellaneous provisions under the
Education and Youth.
House Bill 1291 by Representative Smith of the 133rd and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Code Section 48-8-3 of the OCGA relating to exemptions from sales and use tax, so as to revise the spending threshold.
Finance.
House Bill 1297 by Representatives Gamble of the 15th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Chapter 32 of Title 33 of the OCGA relating to property insurance, so as to provide an insurance premium discount or reduction
Insurance
for.
and Labor.
House Bill 1330 by Representative Smear of the 135th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to imposition, rate, commutation, exemptions, and credits from state income tax.
Finance.
House Bill 1331 by Representative Meeks of the 178th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Title 34 of the OCGA relating to labor and industrial relations, so as to change.
Appropriations.
House Bill 1335 by Representative Smear of the 135th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Chapter 4 of Title 1 of the OCGA relating to holidays and observances.
Government Oversight.
House Bill 1350 by Representatives Wade of the 9th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 5 of Title 53 of the OCGA relating to probate of wills, trusts, and administration of estates generally.
Special Judiciary.
House Bill 1354 by Representatives Holcomb of the 81st and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Article 4 of Chapter 5 of Title 28 of the OCGA relating to Claims Advisory Board, so as to create the wrongful
Judiciary.
conviction. House Bill 1358 by Representative Bellinger of the 23rd and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 3 of Title 12 of the OCGA relating to general provisions regarding parks, historic areas, memorials, and recreation, so as to revise provisions.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1382 by Representative Stevens of the 164th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Code Section 36-62A-21 of the OCGA relating to required training on development or redevelopment.
Slogo General.
House Bill 1387 by Representatives Collins of the 68th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Title 40 of the OCGA relating to motor vehicles and traffic, so as to provide for the suspension of a motor vehicle registration upon failure to pay.
Government Oversight.
House Bill 1390 by Representatives Andelwitz of the 42nd and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 34 of the OCGA relating to sex discrimination in employment, so as to provide for a right of action
Judiciary.
against. House Bill 1404 by Representatives Pruitt of the 149th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Article 7 of Chapter 4 of Title 49 of the OCGA relating to medical assistance generally, so as to direct the
Health and Human Services.
House Bill 1405 by Representatives Roberts of the 52nd and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Title 36 of the OCGA relating to local government, so as to revise the zoning procedures law.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1421 by Representatives Buckner of the 170 37th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 2 of Article 3 of Chapter 8 of Title 12 of the OCGA relating to hazardous
Finance.
House Bill 1424 by Representatives Powell of the 32nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 27 of Title 50 of the OCGA relating to the Georgia Lottery for Education Act. So as to
Regulated industries.
House Bill 1425 by Representatives Werkheiser of the 157th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 9 of Chapter 12 of Title 16 of the OCGA relating to access to medical cannabis, so as to authorize the governor to
Health
issue.
and Human Services.
House Bill 1435 by Representatives Martin of the 49th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Subpart 2A of Part 3 of Article 7 of Chapter 3 of Title 20 of the OCGA relating to
Higher
the needs.
education.
House Bill 1443 by Representative Gaines of the 117th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 13 of Chapter 2 of Title 26 of the OCGA relating to food service establishments.
Agriculture and Consumer Affairs.
House Bill 1461 by Representatives Anderson of the 10th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 36 of Title 36 of the OCGA relating to annexation of territory so as to revise.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1464 by Representatives Burchett of the 176th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 3 of Title 35 of the OCGA relating to general provisions regarding the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
Ethics.
House Bill 1478 by Representatives Ridley of the 6th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 40-3-33 of the OCGA relating to transfer of vehicle from one dealer, records to be kept by
Science and
dealers.
Technology.
House Bill 1479 by Representatives Corbett of the 174th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 2 of Article 1 of Chapter 6 of Title 12 of the OCGA relating to practice of professional.
Government oversight.
House Bill 1481 by Representatives Dispersed of the 11th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 40-2-38 of the OCGA relating to registration and licensing of manufacturers, distributors, and
Regulated industries.
House Bill 1482 by Representatives Irwin of the 28th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 20-2-262 of the OCGA relating to low wealth capital outlay
Education
grants.
and youth.
House Bill 1483 by Representatives Barton of the 5th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 10A of Title 43 of the OCGA relating to licensing
Regulated
provisions.
industries.
House Bill 1484 by Representatives Hawkins of the 27th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 7 of Chapter 4 of Title 49 of the OCGA relating to medical assistance generally so as to provide
Health and
for-
Human Services.
House Bill 1496 by Representatives Gullett of the 19th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 3 of Title 4 of the OCGA relating to livestock running at large so as to authorize a sheriff.
Agriculture and Consumer Affairs.
House Bill 1515 by Representatives Bentley of the 139th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 20-3-411 of the OCGA relating to definitions regarding tuition equalization grants at private colleges.
Higher
and-
education.
House Bill 1516 by Representative Gaines of the 117th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 7 of Chapter 3 of Title 12 of the OCGA relating to Georgia Music Hall of Fame Authority so as to provide for definitions.
Economic development.
House Bill 1520 by Representatives Hawkins of the 27th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 31 of the OCGA relating to wealth so as to create the Georgia Council on Addressing Healthcare Workforce.
Government
Call.
oversight.
House Bill 1522 by Representative Ridley of the 6th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 10-1-831 of the OCGA relating to required information from operators.
Interstate cooperation.
House Bill 1528 by Representatives Mottman of the 17th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 14 of Chapter 1 of Title 10 of the OCGA relating to secondary metals recyclers so as to provide that it shall be illegal for certain persons.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1533 by Representatives Newton of the 123rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 43 of the OCGA relating to general provisions relative to professions and
Health and
businesses.
Human Services.
House Bill 1553 by Representatives Crowe of the 110th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 42 of the OCGA relating to Board of and Department of Correction so as to
Public safety.
House Resolution 593 by Representatives Hogan of the 179th and others, a resolution compensating Mr. Dennis Errol Perry. and further-
Appropriations.
House Resolution 626 by Representatives Holcomb of the 81st and others, a resolution compensating Kerry Robertson and for other purposes.
Appropriations.
House Resolution 686 by Representatives Watson of the 172nd and others, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to provide for a reduction in the rate of the ad valorem tax assessment.
Finance.
House Resolution 732 by Representatives Martin of the 49th and others, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to change the date by which.
Finance.
House Resolution 820 by Representative England of the 116th, a resolution honoring the life of Mr. James J. Boss and dedicating an intersection in his memory.
Transportation.
House Resolution 842 by Representatives Contrell of the 22nd and others, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to restrict the ability of the General Assembly to increase the salary of state senators.
Ethics.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
You got a replacement? I was going to give you a second. That was a great job.
Thank you.
Ms. Secretary, will you please read reports of standing committees?
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State and Local Government Operations has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 615, do pass. Senate Bill 616, do pass. Senate Bill 623, do pass. Senate Bill 625, do pass. House Bill 1418, do pass. House Bill 1509, do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Anderson of the 24th District, Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read bills and resolutions for the second time?
House Bill 56 by Representative Cantrell of the 22nd and others, Blue Ridge Judicial Circuit, Superior Court, provide additional judge. House Bill 304 by Representative Lott of the 122nd and others, Revenue and Taxation, Medical Equipment and Supplies Manufacturers and Pharmaceutical and Medicine Manufacturers provide tax credit. House Bill 1303 by Representative Dickey of the 140th and others, Education, Transition a Pilot Program for Elementary Agricultural Education to an Ongoing Program. House Bill 1346 by Representative Ballinger of the 23rd and others, Courts, Clerks of Superior Courts provide for construction. That completes the order, Mr. President.
All right, it's now time for our afternoon roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? The chair recognizes his good friend from the 33rd.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, good afternoon, y'all. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 5th for business outside the Capitol.
The 5th. Without objection, the senator from the 5th is excused. The chair recognizes the senator from the 2nd. He waves. Chair recognizes the senator from the 9th.
Ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 48th.
Without objection, the senator from the 48th is excused. The chair recognizes the senator from Forsyth County.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 28th.
Without objection, the senator from the 28th is excused. And last but not least, the chair recognizes the senator from the 43rd, hiding behind the senator from the 21st.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 10th.
Without objection, the senator from the 10th is excused. The chair. Any additional motions to excuse? Chair sees none. Secretary will call the roll. Senator, signify your presence by voting the yea switch. Secretary will unlock the machine. All right, it's now time for our afternoon devotional. Better late than never. All senators, take your seats. Cease all audible conversations. Doorkeepers, please secure our chambers at this time. I'd like to recognize our good friend, the senator from the 8th, to lead us in our pledge and to introduce to us our chaplain of the day.
Thank you. Please join me in pledging our flag. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Georgia flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag, the principle for which it stands, wisdom, justice, and moderation. Thank y'all. I'm excited about today. I have my home pastor here, who is also one of my best friends in life. I'm going to give you a little short bio about Paul. Paul Fulton has served as pastor of the First Baptist Church in Homerville for 10 years. Prior to serving in Georgia, he served as a student pastor in North Carolina and South Carolina at various churches for over 10 years. He graduated from Coastal Carolina University with a Bachelor's of Arts in Political Science, and from Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary with a Master's of Divinity in Pastoral Ministry with Biblical Languages. He has served as a past president of the Clinch County Lions Club and currently serves as president of the Clinch County Ministerial Association. He's a member of the executive committee of the Georgia Baptist Convention and the Board of Visitors at Truett-McConnell University. He also works for Clinch County Board of Education as a substitute teacher. Paul has been married for 16 years to Mandy Fulton, a science teacher at Clinch County High School, and they have 2 daughters, Caroline and Harper. Paul loves his family, his church, and his community. Paul, let me tell you, Paul is a full-service pastor. I've got pictures of him on my phone when we were frost protecting blueberries, and it was going to be very cold, and we have to worry about the sprinkler heads freezing up. And Paul has stayed out with me many nights walking the rows of blueberries with a handle, with like a hoe handle or whatever, and when the ice would build up, you know, knocking them off. And I've got pictures of him with icicles hanging off of his hair and everything else. Paul's a great American. He, you know, one of the things that I remember most, and I've shared this with some of y'all in the past, but when my son was electrocuted when he was 11 years old, it went out on the 911 call, and Paul immediately went to the hospital, and of course they wouldn't tell him anything, and he pretty forcefully told him, he said, "You don't understand." He said, "He's my friend and I'm his pastor, and you're going to tell me something." And they finally said, "Well, we sent an ambulance to Cogdale." And you know, he immediately got there, and one of the things that's going to stick with me for the rest of my life is the helicopter being out there in the middle of the highway in rural Georgia, and Paul going in that ambulance with me and praying over my son. And he went with us to the hospital down in Jacksonville, spent the night with me in the waiting room. He has been a part of the darkest times of my life, and he has been a part of the brightest times in my life. He is a true pastor in every sense of the word. He loves his congregation and he loves his community. And y'all please help me welcome my good friend, my brother in life, Paul Fulton.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Russ. Russ's family has meant a lot to my family over the years, and when I first came to Clinch County 10 years ago, his son was the first person I baptized there at the church, and they have been great friends, and I just appreciate this opportunity today. Let me say thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. And I want to thank you for sacrificing your lives to serve the state of Georgia. Each and every one of you has jobs and families that you have set aside during the session each year. And our democracy depends on men and women like you who are not career politicians, but citizens who serve with honor. As Russ mentioned in my bio, I have a degree in political science. There was a time in my life where I would have wanted to sit in the chairs that you're sitting. I'm thankful that God called me to pastor, and I'm thankful that I'm not sitting where you are sitting. And after spending the last day driving around Atlanta, being up here, I'm glad I don't come up here all the time like all of you do. And for those of you that live here, it is a wonderful place. But I've become a country boy from South Georgia over the last 10 years, and sitting in any type of traffic has got to the point where it drives me crazy. When I was asked to speak with you, I prayed for a verse or subject, but God put a name on my heart. A name that I will not share with you today out of respect for His privacy, but I would like to share his story with you. When I was 5 years old, my dad signed me up for Little League Baseball. He had the hopes that I would be the next Ted Williams. As you look and see me, those hopes were dashed. That did not come to fruition. But in that first year that I played Little League baseball, I had a coach who was named Mike. I already knew Mike. He was a member of our church. His family sat right behind my family at the church. And over that year, even though he hit me with the ball repeatedly, it's as much my fault as his, because back in those days you didn't have the pitching machines. The coaches would pitch the ball to you, and I tended to get hit a lot. But over that year, I became very good friends with Mike and his family, and I admired him very much. Mike was the government and economics teacher at the private school that our church had there in our hometown, and so we all knew Mike very well. The following year, Mike decided as a class project for his high school government class that he would run for the state House of Representatives. My older brother was in that class. He worked on his campaign. I remember the flyers all over our house. The entire community was all excited. Our church community was excited as Mike ran for state house. And lo and behold, he won. And so my first brush with politics was my first Little League coach who I admired, who sat behind me every Sunday morning at church. Mike continued coming to church regularly. Throughout the next several years, he served faithfully. He continued to stand up against the party who was in control of the House of Representatives. And he would give reports regularly at church and around town of what was going on. I remember once the opposing party even withdrew the district, and he found himself living outside of the district he had always served, and his family sacrificed and moved to stay in the district that he had served at and won re-election, beating someone else who was also an incumbent. I grew up watching Mike stand for what he believed in. He was our champion. As I grew up, I went to college, I moved out of state, and I lost contact and I lost view of what all was going on during those days. But during those times, life was changing in politics, and I remember hearing the wonderful news that Mike's party, not saying which party that was going to take the state house that year. They were going to have a 2-representative majority, and everyone was very excited in our town. But then there was a twist. Mike announced that he was changing parties. And by changing parties, there would be a dead even tie, and that the Speaker of the House would remain in power. My parents were outraged. Our church was furious. Mike served out his term, and he lost the next election. A few years went by, and then we learned the truth of what had happened. The Speaker of the House had paid Mike $50,000 to switch parties so that he could stay in power. My first Little League coach was involved in one of the biggest political scandals in my home state's history. And even though I was at that point in my 20s, I was crushed. And I felt like I was a 5-year-old whose hero had let him down. Mike was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison, of which he has now served, and he is back home. Obviously, his standing in the community is very much different now. His life was ruined in a request for money and power. I believe some of you already knew this story as I was sharing it. I saw a few of you shaking your head. I'm sharing this story with you because Jesus says in Matthew chapter 5, verse 37, "But let your word be yes, and your no be no. Anything more than this is from the evil one. Ladies and gentlemen, no matter which side of the aisle you sit, I encourage you to be people of integrity. You each came to this office with a desire to do good and stand up for your beliefs. But often over time, we compromise. And I want you to remember that there are people who believe in you. They look up to you. You have sat beside them in church. You have coached their little league teams. They have wrote checks to you because they believe in you. And I want to encourage you to live up to their expectations. And let your yes be yes and your no be no. Do not allow your time sitting under the gold dome to change the men and women of integrity that first took the oath of office. Today, I want to encourage each and every one of you. And I don't know really any of you, but I want to encourage you. Every decision you make, every vote you cast, remember those people who supported you when you first came here. Remember those people who sacrificed and worked on that first campaign. Remember those people who wrote those first checks when no one knew for sure if you were going to win. Remember those people who believed all of those things that you said. Because what we need in our country is people of integrity. People who do what they say and let their yes be yes and their no be no. Please pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today. And Lord, I thank you for these men and these women who sacrifice their time. And they come and they serve the state of Georgia. Lord, I pray for them. Pray that you'll give them guidance and direction. I pray that you will take care of them as they are away from their families and their friends and their homes. And Lord, I pray that they will avoid all the temptation, all of the things that politics has to offer. And let them continue to be the men and women of integrity who were elected to these offices. Let them stand up for the truth that they believe in. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you.
Are there any unanimous consents? Does any senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? Chair recognizes the good senator from the 48th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. So on March 16th, 2021, a gunman shot and killed 8 people in a barbaric rampage near Atlanta. Their names are Sun Chung Park, Hyun Jung Grant, Sun Cha Kim, Yong A Yu, Xiao Jie Tan, Dao Yo Feng, Delania Yon Gonzalez, and Paul Andre Michaels. Of the 8 lost, 6 were Asian women. Many of us hearing the news of this mass shooting event were shocked, but some were less surprised than others. Because 1 year and 1 day ago, little more than 24 hours before the shooting took place, I stood right here in the well of the Senate and talked about the rising phenomenon of violence against the Asian American community in this country. And on that day, I called these attacks we'd been seeing just another chapter in a very old story. I did not want to be right then, and I wish I hadn't been right now. After the shootings, the gunman insisted that the murders were not, quote, racially motivated, but instead driven by his own, quote, sexual addiction, and that his actions were carried out in an effort to eliminate the temptation he felt the victims posed to him. Law enforcement officials in Cherokee County were all too happy to parrot this narrative and accept his motivations as stated. The message from the outset, carried by seemingly authoritative voices, was clear: that while the shootings may have been directed against women in particular, by the murderer's own assessment, this was an animus not influenced by their race. His motives could be driven by one or not the other, certainly not both. As though the victims themselves had a choice of either being seen as Asian or as women, but not as both. As though the fact of being an Asian woman isn't a package deal, a chimerical social tango where no one aspect can be teased apart from the other. As Asian women, we carry a set of stereotypes where culture, sexuality, intent, and effect is impossible to delineate. We are called China dolls, dragon ladies, geisha girls, and lotus blossoms, alternately seen as docilely servile ornaments, or as lascivious temptresses, exotic and fetishized, and essentially fungible. Most Asian women have long internalized that to be Asian in this country is to be either invisible or unavoidably objectified and sexualized, interaction after interaction, day after day, so much so that the mere suggestion that our Asianness and our femininity could be considered in exclusion is laughable. Based on our most current data, nearly 2/3 of the incidents of AAPI hate incidents were perpetrated on Asian women. What's more, this data is almost certainly an undercount, as it relies on self-reporting from victims or bystanders in a world where the notion that Asian Americans even face discrimination or violence is generally minimized, if not outright dismissed. History has shown that it is easier to hurt others whom we objectify or see as less than human. We also know that the hypersexualization and objectification of women and girls leads them to increased risk of violence. I'll finish my point. Asian women often find themselves at the nexus of this social psychology, and in examining the events of March 16th and its inciting factors, we cannot turn away from the interplay of racism, sexism, and its deadly effect. That is why the importance of education cannot be overstated. That is why the discussions we have in this chamber about what we can and cannot discuss in the classrooms matters. Because even when it's uncomfortable, maybe even especially when it's uncomfortable, awareness about race matters. Awareness about sexism and gender matters. Understanding how these things interplay and understanding context matters. Education, above all, is an empathy machine. I'm almost finished. Education uses the past to shape our future for the better. And only in teaching our children early about different cultures, the varied history of these cultures in the Americas, and the legacy of how otherization and exotification of these groups has enabled violence too easily dismissed, not just in the past, but today, can we hope to instill the understanding and perspective necessary to prevent another March 16th. Thank you. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 23rd for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. As my colleagues know, I rarely take the well. But today I'm compelled to bring you the rest of the story. If many of you can remember the radio commentator Paul Harvey, he often had a vignette every morning, and he told what he considered to be the rest of the story. Yesterday was a busy day. We took up Senate Bill 297, honoring the original 33. I thank the senator from the 43rd for bringing the legislation, and I was proud to support it. As all of my colleagues are aware, all members of the original 33 were Republicans. Why? Well, at the time, the Democratic Party would not allow recently freed blacks to actively engage in their party. For your information, the Georgia Republican Party was organized at a black Baptist church in Augusta, Georgia, the historic Springfield Baptist Church, which was founded in 1787. For the record, Springfield Baptist Church was also the birthplace of Morehouse College. Yesterday was a long day. It was crossover. It was busy. We dealt with 46 bills yesterday, 28 Republican bills, 4 Republican resolutions. 29 Republicans' bill passed, 2 were defeated, 1 was tabled. On the Democratic side, we dealt with 13 bills and 1 resolution. All Democratic bills passed with bipartisan support. Just as a reminder, the senator from the 2nd, the 5th, the 22nd, the 35th, the 36th, the 39th, the 40th, the 41st, the 43rd, and the 44th all had bills passed out of this chamber yesterday. And they were strong bipartisan bills, and I'm grateful for it. We got into a heated debate late in the day on SB 504. The senator from the 29th brought a controversial bill, and I took exception to the minority report. Because in the minority report, they referred to the legislation as New Jim Crow. I find the language divisive and offensive. I shared my concerns with a colleague, my good friend from the 22nd. Let's just make sure we understand who Jim Crow was. When we refer to Jim Crow, who was he? He was white, he was a segregationist, and he was a Democrat. We know who he was. He served in this legislature. He held our state's highest offices, and he oppressed the black population of Georgia. And that was wrong. It was wrong then, it's wrong now. But not until 1950, 1960 did we begin to address the Jim Crow era. I grew up in the segregated South. I was in Atlanta during the Civil Rights Movement. I experienced the struggles for equality. The last 70 years, we made great progress. We're not finished. It's not over. Are there still oppressions? Yes. Are there still challenges of racial equality? Yes. But to characterize any legislation as Jim Crow does not contribute to solving the problem. I respectfully request my colleagues from both parties to not use divisive or offensive references to any legislation. Let's debate our differences on the merits of the legislation. Let's vote our consciences and those of our constituents, and let's maintain civil disorder in our body. Mr. President, I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 32nd for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today with some really terrible news that I hope many of us will pay attention to, and it's about something that happened just a few hours ago in Japan. We have a large Japan caucus. Many of us have been to Japan as part of that caucus, and there was a large earthquake off the coast of Fukushima, which is the exact same place where the earthquake happened in 2011 that caused harm to the nuclear plant there. And in that earthquake, almost 20,000 people died. So I haven't heard anything about the fatalities. I know there's disruptions to power and transport in the area, but I would urge all of us to pay close attention to this and to keep these people in our thoughts, because this is a disaster of a large magnitude, and our partners economically and in many other ways in Japan are very important to us in the state of Georgia, and I just wanted to bring that to your attention. With that, I'll yield the will.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 14th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've come to you today with some great news and then some sad news. First, I'd like to recognize and honor Kathy Katschweg, who is now our new KSU president, taking over there. She's done a great job, and I'm confident that Kennesaw State University will continue to be led with her leadership. Sad news is this. Many of you know Wesley Ross. Wesley Ross has been very involved in a lot of campaigns. He is the campaign chair for Jody Heiss. He was down here as an intern, and his whole political career has come through this Capitol. And last night, Wesley's dad, Nathan Patterson, was killed in a car accident headed back to Dalton. So, Mr. President, I would ask for a moment of silence for that family.
Senator has asked us to rise for a moment of silence.
Thank you. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 35th from her desk.
Thank you, Mr. President. Every year, we celebrate International Diaspora Day at the Capitol, and we have an opportunity to wear our traditional clothes in whatever country we side with or want to represent. And tomorrow, Thursday the 17th of March, in room 307 in the CLOB from 9:30 to 11:30, we will have the consulate generals from Argentina, Belgium, Canada, Liberia, Israel, Mexico, Brazil, Nigeria, and it's a couple that RSVP'd this morning, so we adding them as well, Haiti and Ghana. So if I would like to encourage all of you to come by and greet them, and I will have a resolution, and I will represent them tomorrow as a point of personal privilege. So we are excited about it. So when you see our headdresses and our clothes on, you'll know we were just representing African mind. You might wear a dashiki with your jeans that you wear tomorrow. No, just kidding. But whatever, you can still wear your shirt and tie. But thank you, Mr. President. I just want to invite everyone to come and celebrate the fact that we are an international state. We're not just the South anymore. We're everybody. Thank you.
My best advice is to ignore the rules, Chairman. Chair recognizes the senator from the 42nd for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my honor today to present a resolution and recognize some special guests that we have with us in our gallery. This resolution recognizes April 2022 as Genocide Prevention and Awareness Month. The goal of Genocide Prevention and Awareness Month is to educate the public about the history of previous and contemporary genocides and help to develop policies, strategies, and programs geared toward combating the evils of genocide and to commemorate the victims of genocide. You might wonder where the term originally came from. During World War II, a Polish lawyer of Jewish descent, Raphael Lemkin, coined the term genocide to describe the coordinated plan of actions aimed at the destruction of essential foundations of the life of certain groups, to include social institutions, culture, identities, religion, and with the ultimate aim of annihilating the group itself. Throughout history, numerous genocides have originated or stemmed from events that occurred in April. And as a result, many institutions around the world have designated April to be a month of genocide prevention and awareness. When Raphael Lemkin coined the term genocide, he was moved to investigate the forced assimilation, deportation, and near eradication of the Armenian population and other Christian communities that began in April 1915, and which is what the President of the United States recognized in 2021 as genocide of the Armenian people. In April 1933, the Nazis issued a decree preparing the way for the final solution, defining non-Aryans as anyone descended from non-Aryan, especially Jewish, parents or grandparents. And we've had, sadly, so many horrific genocides throughout the world that it's hard to name them all and commemorate them, especially in a short amount of time. So I'm going to quickly list a few others that we're commemorating today. Stalin's regime on Soviet Ukraine, Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, the deaths of 200,000 Bosniaks or Bosnian Muslims in Bosnia and Herzegovina, 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus in Rwanda, Darfurians in Sudan, the Rohingya, killings done by in Myanmar, killings done by the Islamic State, 12 million Uyghurs, Muslim ethnic community in China, and also want to note, in addition to others that we unfortunately are having to leave out due to time, anti-Semitic attacks on synagogues across our nation. Here in Georgia, we're a diverse population of racial, ethnic, and national religious groups. And we have a Georgia Commission on the Holocaust. The American Jewish Committee has a program that works proactively to create awareness of our citizens of past and contemporary instances. And we have some of them here with us today. So in closing, I just want to recognize Zach Bernath, who is from Access Atlanta with the the AJC, American Jewish Committee. Melanie Nelkin, who's been a tireless advocate on this topic for as long as I've known her, which is now 13 or 14 years. Father Bogdan Marushak, who is from St. Andrew's Ukrainian Orthodox Church in Cumming, and they're all here, and I just want to welcome and honor our guests for joining us here today. Thank you for being with us. And I see we have some others. Thank you for your tireless work for equality for all and prevention of genocide. Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 28th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to point out that the senators from the 12th, 42nd, 44th, and 55th are all celebrating Mustard Day. So I want to say Happy Mustard Day to each of you. And Senator from the 9th, catch-up day is tomorrow. So thank you.
I wish I was paying attention because that sounds like it was pretty funny. Chair recognizes the senator from the 11th to introduce to us our doctor of the day.
Thank you, Mr. President. Unfortunately for the senator from 28th, the doctor of the day is not a psychiatrist. Dr. Chad Ray is a fellow obstetrician gynecologist, and he is coming to us from the Medical College of Georgia, where he served on the faculty since 2006. I know everybody's tired, so I'm not going to read the bio that was sent to me. That's fairly lengthy because it deserves to be. But know that Dr. Ray is someone who has assisted me in all the efforts that we as a body have made in trying to improve the maternal mortality in Georgia. He is on the Maternal Mortality Review Committee, and many of the suggestions and policies that we've put in place over the last 4 or 5 years have come from him and his colleagues that are doing selfless work to try to improve the health of the women in Georgia when it comes to childbirth. He also started a reentry program, which is helping us with our workforce development to allow retired OBGYNs that want to go back into the workforce to have a training update so that they can get properly credentialed. So if anyone has any health needs today, Dr. Ray's a great guy, a great friend of this body, and I want to personally ask you guys to, if you see him in the hall with his white coat, to thank him for the work that he's done for us and for Georgia. I yield the well, Mr. President.
You have a consent calendar of privileged resolutions before you. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Is there objection or adoption of the resolutions on the consent calendar? The chair hears none, and the resolutions on the consent calendar are adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw and commit? You have a consent calendar of local bills before you. Mr. Secretary, are there any objections filed to any bills on the local consent calendar?
Mr. President, no objections filed.
Is there objection to agreeing the report of the Committee on State and Local Government, which is favorable to the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Questions on the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar? All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar, the yeas are 45, the nays are 2, and the bills having received the requisite constitutional majority are therefore passed. Chair recognizes the majority whip for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we engross the following bills: House Bill 1302 and House Bill 1320.
Ms. Secretary, can you please read the captions?
House Bill 1302, a bill by Representatives Bonner of the 72nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to income taxes, so as to provide for a one-time tax credit for individual taxpayers who filed income tax returns for both the 2020 and 2021 taxable years, to provide for a definition and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Huff-Stetler, the 52nd District Chairman. House Bill 1320, a bill by Representatives Knight of the 130th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 48 of the OCGA relating to revenue and taxation so as to revise the terms Internal Revenue Code and Internal Revenue Code of 1986 and for other purposes. That completes your order, Mr. President.
What purpose does the senator from the second rise? He waves. He doesn't wave.
Mr. President, I ask that the senator from the 39th be excused for business outside the chamber.
Without objection, the senator from the 39th is excused. The majority leader has asked for unanimous consent that House Bills 1302 and 1320 be engrossed. Is there objection? There is objection. Would you like to speak to your motion? He waves. Would the minority leader like to speak to her objection? She waves. All those in favor of engrossing House Bill 1302 and 1320 vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. What purpose does the majority whip rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that if you're a senator and you're not in the chamber, you need to come now so you can vote for this engrossment?
I believe the gentleman needs to speak louder.
Thank you. Come to the chamber. Come to the chamber.
On the motion, the yeas are 32, the nays are 18, and this chamber has engrossed House Bills 1302 and 1320. We are now going to move on to the rules calendar at the ripe hour of 2:11. Ms. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 891?
House Bill 891, a bill by Representatives Williamson of the 115th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 7 of the OCGA relating to financial institutions so as to provide for numerous updates, to amend Chapter 3 of Title 7 of the OCGA relating to installment loans so as to include servicing of installment loans to the activity regulated under the chapter, to exempt from regulation certain government entities and certain retail and credit transactions, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Committee on Banking and Financial Institutions recommend that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Brass of the 28th District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 18th to present House Bill 891.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, colleagues. I have the pleasure of bringing for the last several years now the annual Banking Department's cleanup bill, and that's what this is. It contains proposed legislative changes identified internally or suggested by the industry over the course of the previous year since we went through this process last year. The major goal of these efforts is streamlining or simplifying of existing statutes in this sector and to make the department's regulation more efficient and or to ease the regulatory burden on financial institutions while at the same time ensuring that the banks and credit unions are safe and sound. The bill contains revisions to bank, credit union, installment lenders, money service businesses known as MSBs, money transmitters, sellers of payment instruments, and check cashers, and also the mortgage lending industry and the brokerage laws. The legislation is supported by the Georgia Bankers Association, the Community Bankers Association, the League of Southeastern Credit Unions, formerly known as the Georgia Credit Union Affiliates, Mortgage Bankers Association of Georgia, Georgia Financial Services Association, and the Georgia Installment Lenders Association. Equally important, no one has expressed an opposition or any objection to the bill that you have before you. Also importantly, I'm pleased to tell you the bill was passed out of the House unanimously. It also went before our Banking Committee and came out unanimously from there. There's basically 4 areas that's addressed in this year's bill other than the normal updating of language that's required over the course of time. One is the application process for, excuse me, for changing or charging for the acquisition of a bank. That process is simply streamlined through this year's update. The MSB, or the money service businesses, like I mentioned a moment ago, such as Venmo, what we're trying to do is make sure that our act or our statutes model or follow the model act that is being passed by states around the country. This is a very rapidly growing industry, as most of the fintech areas are. The third area is for GLA, and this simply says that they pay a tax on the interest every month, and we're changing that to a fee-based assessment. This is paid by the bank, it's not paid by the consumer, and it's supposed to be revenue neutral. We're not making more money or charging them less money. The third is with regard to credit unions. Y'all may remember a few years ago we made some changes that limit and place certain parameters on aggregating of loans for purposes of securing those loans. When we did that, it created an undue burden on some of the smallest of these lenders, and so now if you have an aggregate amount of $50,000 or less, you don't have to combine those for purposes of securing to make sure that you're in compliance with the laws. As I said, it's very much a cleanup bill. Among other things, the bill makes revisions to not only the banks but bank holding companies. And with that, Mr. President, I'm happy to answer any questions, or I'll yield the well.
You don't appear to have any questions.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that and look for your favorable support. I yield.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 891? The chair sees none. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill? All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 50, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Ms. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 963?
House Bill 963, a bill by Representatives Parrish of the 158th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 13 of Title 16 of the OCGA relating to controlled substances, so as to change certain provisions relating to Schedule 1 controlled substances and Schedule 4 controlled substances, to change certain provisions relating to the definition of dangerous drugs and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Public Safety recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Alvarez of the 56th District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 11th to present House Bill 963.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 963 is the annual scheduled drug update, otherwise known as the Dangerous Drug Bill. I appreciate your vote for it, and I'll yield the well.
I'm reminded of a quote that I think it was one of our chaplains said, "He who is short-winded shall be heard again." So one of our chaplains reminded us of that. Any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 963? The chair sees none. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill? All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 48, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Ms. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 1233?
House Bill 1233, a bill by Representatives Rhodes of the 120th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 2 of Title 12, Title 27, and Article 1 of Chapter 7 of Title 52 of the OCGA relating to general provisions of the Department of Natural Resources, Game and Fish, and general provisions of the registration, operation, and sale of watercraft, respectively, so as to delay the earliest effective date for certain rules and regulations for which criminal violations may be established and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Committee on Natural Resources and the Environment recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Harper of the 7th District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 7th to present House Bill 1233.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this is one of a number of DNR bills we have this session, but this is the annual update bill. It updates the rules and regs for the DNR board. It also addressed some language that we left out of a piece of legislation in regards to migratory birds. We cleaned that up. And also in the same in migratory birds, just lining it up with federal law with the number of shells you can have in your shotgun while hunting those particular migratory birds, and also consolidated the black bass species instead of them all being listed out individually. We specifically made sure that we cleaned up the code, that there's only one type of black bass instead of listing them all out. If there are no questions, Mr. President, I will yield the will.
You have a question. Chair recognizes the senator from the 41st with a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, do you yield?
I will yield. Yes, ma'am.
Senator, how many black bass can I catch if we don't pass this law?
10.
How many black bass will I be able to catch if we do pass this law?
10.
All right, that's all I needed to know.
Thank you, Senator.
Easiest question of the week. You have no more questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the will.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 1233? The chair sees none. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Question on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 42, the nays are 6. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Six nays must have wanted to catch more fish. Ms. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 1302?
House Bill 1302, a bill by Representatives Bonner of the 72nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to income taxes so as to provide for a one-time tax credit for individual taxpayers who filed income tax returns for both the 2020 and 2021 taxable years and for the purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Huffstetler, the 52nd District Chairman. Additionally, a fiscal note has been attached. That concludes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 45th to present House Bill 1302.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to present House Bill 1302. It's a key priority in Governor Kemp's legislative agenda for this session. It also passed overwhelmingly in the House about 2 weeks ago. House Bill 1302 presents a unique opportunity for our General Assembly to put over $1.1 billion back into the pockets of hardworking Georgians. This bill allows qualified taxpayers who have filed individual income taxes for the year of 2020 and 2021 to receive a refund when they file taxes this year. Single filers would receive $250. Head of household filers would receive $375, and couples that are filing jointly would receive $500. Georgians with tax liabilities less than that would receive a prorated share of that. So if your tax liability at the state was $400 and you filed jointly, you would receive a $400 tax credit. Qualified taxpayers do not need to take any actions, and once the governor signs this into law, it would take about 6 to 8 weeks for the checks to start circulating to taxpayers. House Bill 1302 is a fulfillment of our beliefs that when government takes in more money than it needs, the surplus funds should go back to the taxpayers. Ultimately, it's our citizens, not our government, that move our state forward, and they know best how to spend their hard-earned money. Governor Kemp's decision to reopen the economy has already led us to a record low unemployment and a record high job creation numbers since the pandemic started over 2 years ago. This refund gives our state another opportunity to lead in the great recovery. And with that, Mr. President, I'll be happy to answer any questions or yield the will.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 4th to your left.
Senator.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you a couple of questions. You yield well?
Yes, sir.
So what and I know I'm a CPA, and I've talked to a lot of people in this body, and I know a lot of people don't file their returns until August, September, October of the year. So does that mean that they will not get any money until after they file those returns, let's say October?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. You still yield well?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. Are you aware, because you did sign on to a resolution, that we have dropped a resolution asking the members of this body to donate a portion of that refund that they received from the state of Georgia to a Red Cross fund or some other type of fund for the Ukrainian people of Ukraine?
Yes, sir, Senator, I am aware.
Thank you.
Grateful for y'all doing that. Thank you for the question.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 34th with a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yu.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that mean as a qualified taxpayer here in the great state of Georgia, I'll be receiving that?
Yes, ma'am, you will.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question.
That was a good answer. You have no more questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the will.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 1302? Chair sees none. Is there objection to agree in the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 47, the nays are 4. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 1320?
House Bill 1320, a bill by Representatives Knight of the 130th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 48 of the OCGA relating to revenue and taxation so as to revise the terms Internal Revenue Code and Internal Revenue Code of 1986, and thereby incorporate certain provisions of the federal law into Georgia law to revise provisions for granting the extension of time for returns and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Hofstetler of the 52nd District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 4th to present House Bill 1320.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is one of our, or every year we're doing that, our annual IRS conformity bill, and this is the one for this year. And you have got a fiscal note on your desk, and many of you will ask about a fiscal note. It's $1.9 million fiscal note for 5 years. Let me tell you a little bit about this. It's effective 1/1/22. It's mainly to incorporate some federal changes into our Georgia code, and those federal changes mainly deal with some tax-exempt financing on broadband, purpose of broadband and other purposes, some rate smoothing, and contribution to regulated public utilities that are non-tax. These changes also came about mainly because of the pandemic action. We all know a lot of what we're dealing with today is because of the pandemic. Another addition to this was we have the Commissioner of the Department of Revenue has the authority, if we have tornadoes or hurricanes, to extend the filing of tax returns. This also adds specific fires to that extension also. So, Mr. President, if you have any questions, I'll yield away.
You don't appear to have any questions.
Thank you, sir.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 1320? Chair sees none. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill? All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 48, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Chair recognizes the majority whip for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate agree to the House amendment to the Senate amendment to House Bill 328.
Ms. Secretary, can you please read the caption?
House Bill 328, a bill by Representatives Mottman of the 17th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 5 of Title 46 of the OCGA relating to telephone service general provisions so as to establish for a one-time right-of-way permit fee and reduce annual right-of-way use fees as due compensation paid to municipal authorities by telephone companies that do not have retail and user customers located within the boundaries of a municipal authority and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities recommend that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Cowser of the 46th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate offers the following amendment number 3 to amend House Bill 328 by replacing 268 and 269 with the following. 19, if a telephone company does not have retail end user customers located within the boundaries of a municipal authority, then the following shall apply and for other purposes. Mr. President, the House offers the following amendment to the Senate amendment to House Bill 328 by deleting lines 1 through the end and inserting in lieu thereof the following. Amend House Bill 328 by replacing lines 281 and 282 with the following. Effective January 1st, 2023, by telephone companies that provide any broadband services to any location within the boundaries of a municipal authority and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 51st to speak to his motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, think back 12 months ago, we were here talking about broadband and how to lower the costs of broadband deployment throughout Georgia in cities and counties, rural and urban. We were trying to lower the fees on franchise fees on these cables, telephone cables and broadband service providers, where they were literally delivering cables through a city, but they're not selling service to a retail customer. You'll recall that the fee for that was $5,000 per mile per year. The DOT had that exorbitant fee at the time. They were charging people the same fee for that. That's in addition to companies that were selling retail services. They were paying the 3% franchise fee. This bill strictly takes that fee back down. It runs to 19 cents per mile for those companies that are delivering the broadband services in the cities, and it's 5 cents per mile, or per foot rather, for those companies that do not have that service. This bill passed the Senate. It went over to the House. They made the amendment basically moving the date to 1 year out. Because we did not pass it last year, we had to change the effective date to 2022, December 31. So that's basically all the bill does. GMA supports the bill. There's no opposition. The utility industry support the bill. There has been no opposition to this bill as it currently sits. I'm happy to take any questions.
You don't appear to have any questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your support.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against the motion? The chair sees none. The senator from the 51st has moved that the Senate agree to the House amendment to the Senate amendment to House Bill 328. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the motion, the yeas are 49, the nays are 1, and the Senate has agreed to the House amendment to the Senate amendment to House Bill 328. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Thursday, 17 March, St. Patrick's Day, 2022.
Mr. Secretary, do you have any announcements you'd like to make?
Rules Committee will meet immediately upon adjournment in 4:50 today, and the Transportation Committee meeting has been canceled. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Does any of the senators wish to make an announcement? The Majority Leader has moved that the Senate stand adjourned until Thursday, March 17th, 2022, St. Patrick's Day, at 10 a.m. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate stands adjourned.